Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over the rainfall over the eastern United States. We're going to have some areas getting about 2 to 4 or even more inches of rain over the next 1 to 3 days. So we'll be going over all of that and more in today's video. We'll also be timing out this system and giving you all the information you need to know. So make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. And if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Here's a look at the current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have some frost advisories in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as for a little bit of eastern Idaho. We have some freeze warnings in southern Colorado, and then we have a few flood watches scattered about parts of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, as well as a little bit of West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina, and then one more pocket in the coastal part of South Carolina and North Carolina. We have some heat advisories also up for Southern California, and other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings. Yesterday, we had a high temperature of 109 degrees in Rio Grande Village, Texas, with a low temperature of 18 degrees in Bodie State Park, California, and also 37 miles northwest of Vernal, Utah. Both of them got down to 18 degrees Fahrenheit. The highest rainfall report was in Huntsville, Alabama, where they got 5.32 inches of rainfall, and for the first time in a couple of months, we actually have some snowfall reports from yesterday, when we had 2 inches of snowfall in and around the West Yellowstone area in Montana. So this area down here did get quite a bit of snowfall, and even though these are the reported totals, so you're seeing a report of 2 inches, the estimated snowfall in the higher elevations, which are inaccessible up to this point because of the snowfall, we're expecting that there has been already closer to 8 to 10 inches of snowfall there. But again, nobody was able to report that because nobody's able to really climb in the middle of all that snow and ice. The trails are still not out and open over some of those spots. So hard to get some official snowfall reports from up there. So even though the snowfall reports are only 2 inches, if you looked at the estimated snowfall, it would be closer to 8 or 9 inches in a few of those spots. If you look at the rainfall, so now starting to talk about the storm, what we're basically going to see is a couple of different waves. So we're going to have our first one, which is back over into the mid-Atlantic, and this is going to be the first one that rolls through, mainly just in the form of plain rain. We may have some convection associated with this next line. Both of these are connected. We have a mesoscale discussion now in southern Arkansas for this little batch of severe weather, and that's connected to whatever's happening up into Indiana and Michigan as well. So this is one big line from Michigan all the way down to Arkansas and Louisiana, and then we have potentially what could form on the back end over here in Missouri, Illinois, and Wisconsin, but that's a very weak front as of right now. This would be by 6 p.m. Eastern Time today, which would be 5 p.m. Central Time. We have that rainfall. Again, we have that rainfall in parts of the central and eastern United States. That will be moving further to the east hour by hour. If we move this on, you can see that this storm is going to lift a little bit further northeast. So what you're going to see is that where the center of the storm was originally down here, it's now going to shift a little bit further to the northeast. If you're watching the videos about the pattern that I was talking about a couple days ago, we actually did talk about this, but it was in the form of an upper level trough. So we were talking about the relationship with that and the cold air. And that system, while it will still bring cold air, is also going to be bringing some rainfall with it. So if you guys remember, that low pressure system, which dipped down into the United States and then eventually was going to move up back to the northwest into Ontario, that's this system right now. And all that's different is that we're looking at the surface and we're not looking at the upper air maps, and we're showing you what is actually going to come of this trough. So you have this low pressure in the Ohio Valley, and this is going to continue to spin on to the north. You're going to have a couple waves that kind of break off from that and move to the east, but the general system will continue heading off further northeast. So we have more rainfall now starting to develop on the back end, and then we have a little bit more scattered rain, which is developing into the mid-Atlantic and even into areas in Canada like Ontario and Quebec could be dealing with a little bit of rain out of this come tomorrow morning. This would be by Wednesday at about 12 p.m. Eastern Time, so that's 11 a.m. Central Time. Time, and you're dealing with some more of that rain into the Great Lakes. By the way, if you want to know what time it is, you just have to look at the top right hand corner of the screen, and that is true for pretty much all of my videos. The time is posted at the top right. It's in Eastern Time, so you would just have to convert that to whatever time zone that you're in. So we're dealing with by about 12 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, some rain still into the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley, as well as into parts of Canada, and then down through the Mid-Atlantic, kind of in a stripe shape right there. And then if we move this on to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which would be 5 p.m. Central Time, we do have a little bit of convection which could break out. Now, they have a marginal risk out for this, and this is because it doesn't look like this will be too widespread. I would not be surprised if they put up a slight risk, but I don't think this will be awfully dangerous as of right now. We will have a few pop-up storms, and of course that could cause some damaging winds, maybe a little bit of hail and tornadoes, maybe very small tornadoes. I don't think they're going to be the huge EF4 or EF5 tornadoes with this system. Weak, brief tornadoes possible in Ohio and maybe some areas around there as well. We don't know the specifics on the severe weather just yet. It is more of a kind of a passing risk. We're not looking at anything too severe out of this, although you do want to pay attention with these type of storms. They can always kind of catch you off guard. So just kind of be vigilant about those storms. They could definitely cause some issues if they develop a little bit more than we're expecting. The low pressure right now is pocketed right into Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, and it's going to continue drifting on to the northeast. You can see, again, pulling away to the north. Now, this is unusual because normally you see the storms, especially when you're watching, let's say, a news broadcast, or you're watching any sort of weather show. You'll usually see the wide United States map, and you'll see the storms originating out further to the west and then moving on to the east, and that's what usually happens, but that's not going to be the case in this one. We're actually going to see this storm originate up into the northern plains and into the prairies of Canada, and then it dips down into the Tennessee Valley, and then eventually curves back up into the Great Lakes before eventually moving out further to the east. So it does a very weird track, and that's what makes it so notable and so noticeable on the model guidance. It kind of pops out at you. And it's gonna be a very interesting storm. It will be a strong storm, which is gonna allow it to kind of move in and out between these multiple different high pressure systems. So that's gonna be one of the reasons it's able to do that. You still have that rainfall into the Great Lakes. This would be by 12 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, or that would be 11 p.m. On Wednesday evening. So still dealing with rain into that area, pretty much nonstop. You're gonna get a few inches in those areas. Then that system breaks apart a little bit, and you're seeing that the storms become much more scattered into the northeast and the mid-Atlantic, as well as into the Great Lakes, where you have more of that rain starting to break up by that point, and then it kind of expands upon itself. You're dealing with the storm kind of broadening out, and that's a sign of a weakening storm. When you have a system that's kind of tightly wound up, somewhat like this, so in a comma shape, where you have it like this, and it's kind of just spinning around itself in a small concentrated area, it doesn't have as much room that it has to provide for. It doesn't have to spread out any of its energy over a wide area, so it's able to concentrate that. It'll have higher impacts over a lesser area. So in this type of a system, to start off the storm, it has high impacts over a low area, meaning that it has those high impacts, but it's going to be over a smaller area. But by this point, as we get to Thursday, it's going to have low impacts over a high area. So we're dealing with a big area being affected by it in the form of rainfall. But again, the impacts are going to be low because the storm now is spreading out pretty much from Wisconsin all the way to the mid-Atlantic. So it has to provide energy to the storm within this entire area right there. And it's hard to do that in this type of scenario. So it will eventually kind of get too big, and it'll eventually just break up. So you can see that happening right now. It's kind of just spinning itself to death by this point, where it just doesn't have enough energy to provide for the storm. You will see that this line of showers right here breaks off from the rest. So you still have this low pressure in here, but this line of storms is going to be the main threat, especially if you live in the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic as we get into Friday. So this will be early on Friday morning, and we have that rainfall moving into the Northeast. This will be an issue because it's going to just stall out. So if we looked at the previous frame, which I'll pull up right now, here's the previous frame. You can see really did not move all that much. So this would be around 2 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, and then here would be by 8 a.m. Eastern time. You can see barely anything changed there, and it's steady to heavy rainfall. So when you have that type of a setup, it will be very difficult for the morning commute, especially where you're having some of these roads starting to get a little bit flooded because you're dealing with steady rainfall for a very long period of time, a couple hours or a few hours where you're dealing with heavy rainfall. That'll definitely cause some issues. So hopefully it's not too big of an issue. Hopefully these storms aren't as strong as we're expecting, but definitely something you want to pay attention for. The Friday and Thursday commutes will be a little bit challenging, especially if you live in an area that usually gets flooding. So it won't be impossible probably to drive, but you probably do want to at least take some precautions there, and also just kind of plan out your route a little bit better. If you know that you pass through a road that's next to a lake that will usually flood even in just a few inches of water, you do want to plan ahead of that and try and find a route that will go away from that lake or from that body of water that does usually flood. So just plan around that. You will have some areas flooded, but I think for the majority of areas it should be fine. For Friday, we're dealing with moderate and steady rainfall. Again, that line of storms pretty much just sitting there. So for example, we have this area right here, which is just getting out of the rainfall, but they were dealing with rain for a good solid 24 hours before that. So you're dealing with a full day's worth of rainfall in these areas because of how slowly this front is moving. And if you want to know why, it's because we have a big high pressure sitting on up into Canada. So that's going to kind of stall out this front. It's going to try and move to the east, but it won't be able to. If we move this on a little bit more, you can see heavy rainfall into northern and central New England, but the system is not moving anywhere, and actually it's moving so slow that this other system is going to start to move on from the west. So this is moving on. This was originally all the way in the Pacific Northwest, and it's made its way and caught up with the system because of how slow it's moving. Now remember, we started this model run on Wednesday. It's now Friday night into Saturday morning, and the system moved from Michigan to Vermont. So that's not really that big of a shift there. That's maybe a few hundred miles, but definitely you would expect a lot more within the span of 4 days for a system to move, even 5 days depending on how you look at it. So really slow moving system, and you can see that if it were not for this front right here kind of pushing along the entire pattern, I think this one into New England would probably have stayed there for a good another 48 to 72 hours. It eventually will move out, but very slowly, and you can see it's slowly departing out of the Northeast. You will get a little bit of a brush of rain as we get into Sunday, probably not Sunday, but I would say if you live in the interior Northeast, it would be for Sunday morning, Sunday night if you live in the areas in New England, or if you live in the coastal Northeast or Mid-Atlantic with that secondary front, which is moving through as well. So here's a look at the total rainfall from this event, and you can see it will be quite high. This is through Monday in the morning or Sunday night. So Sunday night into Monday morning is when this is valid for. You can see that in the red colors, we're looking at about 2 to 5 inches of rain. So that is for some parts of the upper Great Lakes, as well as a good portion of Ontario. And then we also have another stripe of that into Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and North Carolina. And then we even have a few pockets, and we don't know exactly where these pockets will be, but there are a few areas that could definitely get above 5 inches of rainfall. Now, this model wants to put it into Western Virginia, Virginia, maybe a few pockets in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. But again, we don't know exactly where that's going to be. So just because your house is right now under the highest amount really doesn't mean anything. It could definitely shift a little bit further to the east. It could shift a little bit further to the west, maybe a little bit further to the north. Think about it like a winter storm. We really don't have a good idea of what's going to happen until within 24 hours. And right now we're looking 5 days out at the rainfall forecast. So there will be some changes to that. If you look at the chances of flash flooding, you can see that for today, we have a slight risk of flash flooding into the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, so definitely take some precautions there. Also, if you live into parts of Western Virginia, West Virginia, and Western North Carolina, as well as Eastern North Carolina and Eastern South Carolina, we have a slight risk of flash flooding for today. And then if we look at for tomorrow, we have that slight risk still in effect in kind of a common shape for parts of the Ohio Valley and also the Appalachians there. And then if we move it on to Thursday, you can see that for parts of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic coast, we have a marginal risk, 5 to 10% chance of seeing some flash flooding. So not a huge threat, but you do want to at least pay attention if you live pretty much anywhere within this area right here for the risk of flash flooding. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll be responding within a couple of hours of you posting that. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.